Welcome friends. This is our second part of chapter 2 of biology standard 11, and that is classification of organism, biological classification. But last time we have studied about the different classification systems which were given by Carolus Linnaeus, which was 2-kingdom system of classification, and then 5-kingdom system of classification which was given by R.H. Whittaker. But in 1990, a scientist named as Carl Woese proposed a new type of classification system, and that was known as 3-domain system of classification. 3-domain system, 3 larger groups of organisms. According to Carl Woese, all the organisms were classified into 3 domains, 3 larger groups, and those were interconnected. And that's why I am drawing the diagram like this. The first domain was called Archaea. The second one was called Bacteria. And third one was called Eukarya. That means the Monera kingdom of 5-kingdom system of classification, which was given earlier by R.H. Whittaker, was again classified into 2 domains, Archaea and Bacteria, and remaining 4 kingdoms, which were Protista, Fungi, Plantae, and Animalia, were grouped together in the Eukarya domain. So overall, this 3-domain system of classification, which was given by Carl Woese, leads us to a new 6-kingdom system of classification. Now friends, let me explain. This classification system we are going to study in more detail in some other chapters, but right now we are concentrating on the loopholes or the advantages of 2-kingdom system and 5-kingdom system. Earlier, when the 2-kingdom system of classification was given, all the living organisms were classified into 2 kingdoms. One was Plantae, second was Animalia. That means plants and animals. No 3rd kingdom was there in the system given or proposed by Carolus Linnaeus. What was the deficit or deficiency of the same classification system? In 2-kingdom system of classification, the organisms, depending upon their simple morphological characters, they were grouped. And because of that, some cyanobacteria, that is blue-green algae, bacteria, bryophytes, pteridophytes, gymnosperms, and angiosperms. They all were grouped under the kingdom Plantae, disrespectful of their original detailed characters. Because, see, bacteria and cyanobacteria both are prokaryotic in nature. Whereas the remaining groups, that means fungi, algae, bryophytes, pteridophytes, gymnosperms, angiosperms, they were all having well-developed nucleus, that means they were eukaryotes. Although they were grouped under a kingdom Plantae. This is the first deficiency. This was the first mistake of two kingdom system of classification. Secondly, the same system was not separating the unicellular organisms from multicellular organisms. As for example, Chlamydomonas and algae, which is unicellular in nature, and spirogat, which is multicellular in nature. They were both grouped together. Why it is so? Because they were both having the cells containing cell walls. Irrespective of their cellular nature, Chlamydomonas is a unicellular, Spirogara is a multicellular organism. They were both grouped together under algae because they were having the same composition of cell wall, or cell wall was present in both of them. So this is the second mistake. Now comes forward the third mistake. Algae and fungi. Again, both were grouped together under the kingdom Plantae. Why? Because both of them were having cell wall. But what about the composition of cell wall? The cell wall of algae is cellulosic. That means it contains cellulose in its structure. Whereas the cell wall of fungi is made up of a substance known as chitin, that is also known as fungus. The cell wall of algae is made up of cellulose, whereas the cell wall of fungi is made up of chitin. Chitin is also known as I told you earlier, fungus cellulose. That means both cell walls' nature is different, although they were grouped together under the kingdom Plantae. But later on, when the inventions were made, the fungi, because of the presence of chitin in the cell wall and other some characters, it was placed under the kingdom fungi. Now, when we talk about the kingdom Protista, the Protista is a kingdom which contains unicellular organisms which are eukaryotic in nature. Earlier, chlorella and chlamydomonas. Both were eukaryotic. Both were unicellular organisms, but containing cell wall. They were grouped in algae. Whereas amoeba and paramecium they were considered as animals, and they were placed under the kingdom animals. But later on, because of their structure, because of their eukaryotic nature, because of their unicellular nature, all of them, irrespective of the presence of cell wall, they were grouped together. That is chlorella, chlamydomonas, amoeba, paramecium. All of them, they were placed under the kingdom Protista in 5 kingdom system of classification, which was given by R.H. Whittaker in 1969. So these were the deficiency of 2 kingdom system of classification. See, this is also not final, because as the time progressed, new and new inventions are being made. Various characteristics of various organisms were observed, and because of that, new kind of criteria for classification are being established. So we can say that the classification is not about only morphological characteristics, physiological characteristics, reproductive characteristics, but it also includes phylogenetic. That means evolutionary relationship among the living organisms also. So now on, or later on, after the Wu's classification system, new and new classification systems were derived through various scientists, through the efforts of various scientists, and most of them were depending upon phylogenetic aspect, or we can say that evolutionary relationship between the organisms. In this chapter, we are going to study the detailed characteristics of Monera, Protista, and fungi. And in the next chapters, we are going to study about the kingdom Animalia and kingdom Plantae. So friends, now we are starting with the first kingdom of living organisms, which is prokaryotic in nature, and that is known as the kingdom Monera. So what is the characters of Monera kingdom? Which are the different characteristics of Monera kingdom? So Monera kingdom contains bacteria as their members. So bacteria are the sole members of Monera kingdom. The organisms, as I told you earlier, they are prokaryotic in nature. They are unicellular in nature, sometimes multicellular organization is also observed in them. And bacteria are very minute in size. thousands of bacteria can occur in a handful of places. And they can live in extreme conditions. That means they are most abundant organisms in the world. They can live in extreme climates like in hot springs, in deserts, in forests, deep in the forests, or in snow-capped mountains. So they are present everywhere. And bacteria, as I told you already, we cannot see with our naked eye. They are very small in size. The bacteria, depending upon their structure or their appearance, they are grouped in 4 different categories. Some of the bacteria are round in size, and that's why they are called coccus. Some of the bacteria are rod-shaped, slender. They are called bacillus. Some of them are comma-shaped, which are called vibrio, and some of them are spiral like a snake. Those are called spirally. So coccus, bacillus, vibrio and spirilla. These are the 4 categories of bacteria. Bacteria, they are having the small size. Despite of that, they are having the complex metabolic activity. Complex metabolic activity. See, the life cycle. The life cycle is compared to other organisms, but their metabolic activity varies at a great range. As for example, some of the bacteria are autotrophic in nature. That means they can synthesize their own food, and they get their food, they obtain their food from inorganic substrate. There are 2 different modes of autotrophic nutrition. One that is called photosynthetic nutrition, and another one that is called chemosynthetic nutrition. Now, what is the difference between photosynthetic and chemosynthetic nutrition? In photosynthetic nutrition, organic substances are produced with the help of light energy, whereas in chemosynthetic nutrition, organic substances are produced by the breakdown of, again, inorganic matter. So these were the subtypes of autotrophic nutrition. Over and above these, in bacteria, we can see heterotrophic nutrition also. And there are again 2 subtypes of heterotrophic nutrition. One that is known as parasitic nutrition. Parasitic means the one which obtains nutrition from another living organisms. And second, that is called saprophytic nutrition. Saprophytic nutrition means nutrition which is obtained from dead and decaying matter. Again, as we have discussed earlier today itself, that the kingdom Monera, according to Voss, was subdivided into two domains, archaea and bacteria. So now on, we are going to study the two subunits of kingdom Monera, and which they are archaebacteria and eubacteria. Got it? So it was a simple topic today. Today we have discussed about the three domain system of classification, that is six kingdom system of classification, deficiencies of two kingdom system of classification, importance of five kingdom system of classification, phylogenetic or evolutionary relationship, and then at the end we have studied about the simple characters of the kingdom Monera. I think you must have understood all the topics easily. Now friends, make a note of all the topics so it will be easier for you to give answer in test. In next lecture, we are going to study about archaebacteria and eubacteria.